Hi, this is Brian Bieron with Platform Economy Insights. And over the past year, we have been tracking, analyzing, and reporting on all the top digital public policy platform issues, especially here in the United States. And with the election of Joe Biden as the 46th President of the United States, I'm going to be doing a series of short videos over the next month that I call 10 in 5. And basically, I'm going to be taking the top 10 issues based on how often they showed up in the Platform Economy Insights reporting, looking at those 10 issues and how the election of President Biden is likely to affect what happens in 2021, in comparison in particular to what would have happened under 4 more years of a Trump administration. So it's 10 issues, 5 minutes apiece. So to kick that off, I'm just going to tell you all what those 10 issues were so that you'll know what to look forward to. So number 10 was privacy policy, and in particular the US-EU data shield, and whether or not we're likely to see, first of all, federal privacy legislation here in the United States in 2021, and whether a Biden administration more focused on good relationships with European allies will be able to address the problem that has emerged over the last few years in terms of the European courts being concerned with U.S. surveillance laws and anti-terrorism laws. So that was number 10. Number 9 is social media content moderation. We know the Democrats and the Republicans both spent the entire year criticizing the big social media companies for how they handled content moderation. The big problem was that the two sides completely disagree on what's wrong. What's it going to mean to have a President Biden who can be pretty critical of social media himself compared to a President Trump? Number 8, the Amazon antitrust issue. Now, the Biden FTC might be more willing to take up an Amazon case than the Trump administration was, who basically sat on what are many bipartisan concerns with Amazon behaviors. Now, major antitrust law reform is pretty unlikely given the divided Congress, or if any case, we're going to see very narrow margins in the Senate and the House. It'll really be up to the FTC if there's going to be action here in the United States on Amazon. Number 7, the Google antitrust case. Now, there are many calls to revisit the Obama administration's FTC decision that basically looked at the same kind of charges being leveled against Google now and let them off the hook back in 2012 and did not pursue an antitrust case. Will there be an effort under the Biden administration to revisit that more aggressively? Obviously, that case is already underway. Will it grow? Will more state attorney generals join it? Will they expand it? We'll talk about that. Number 6, TikTok, WeChat, and digital decoupling with China. There's no question that the Trump administration efforts to ban the WeChat app and also force ByteDance to sell TikTok, one of the biggest and fastest growing apps in America, that has been unprecedented. It's really going to be interesting to see how a foreign policy traditionalist like President Biden and a team of traditional foreign policy players from the Democrat side will take on this challenge. Number 5, forcing media payments from Google and Facebook. France and Australia in particular have been aggressively pushing to force Google and Facebook to pay traditional media companies when they link to online content. More countries are certain to join that effort. Will Biden push back, or will Biden support it? We're going to find out. Number 4, regulating App Store policies and fees. When we entered 2020, Apple in particular, among the big 4 digital platforms, really was number 4 in terms of pressure on the antitrust front. By the time the year ended, they are right at the top. App Store fees, App Store policies are a major antitrust issue. We're going to see what the Biden administration means for that issue. Number 3, California's AB 5, Prop 22, and gig worker regulation. AB 5, which was passed by the California legislature back in 2018, went into effect at the beginning of 2020, was the big gig worker issue this year. By the end of the year, the California voters enacted Prop 22 that exempted the ride-sharing companies and the delivery platforms from the new rules under AB 5. Now, President-elect Biden and really all the Democratic nominees, or those who are running for the Democratic nomination for president, all supported California's AB 5 legislation and oppose basically gig work platforms who hire independent contractors rather than having all those people become employees. Now, this is a very divisive issue because the platforms argue that most people want to work independently when they work on these platforms. Organized labor and the Democratic Party establishment have tended to take the opposite view. What will it mean for President Biden? We'll talk about that. Number 2, Section 230. Will it get repealed? Now, Section 230 is a legal underpinning of internet platforms, in particular any platform that has any user content, like YouTube and this user content. The fact is, Section 230 allows platforms to moderate content and also protects them from liability when people using the platform engage in behaviors that have problems. You know, for example, liability for libel and things like that. Platforms are not responsible for what people post, but they can take things down and otherwise moderate. Both President Trump and candidate Biden aggressively criticized the platforms and Section 230, and Biden called for a repeal. Will that happen? We'll talk about it. And then the number 1 PEI digital platform public policy issue in 2020 was digital services taxes. This is the effort by many countries, and increasingly we're going to probably see states trying to tax the corporate revenues of the biggest digital companies, arguing that those companies, they use the internet to do business in country or in a state, but they don't actually operate there physically, and that the rules should be changed, the tax laws, so that states and countries can tax them even though the company's not there. Now, this has been led in particular by France globally, but the process is expanding drastically. You now have like more than a dozen countries aggressively pushing to impose digital services taxes on big internet companies. And the level of the taxes and the number of countries and how they're going to apply it in each country is changing and growing. The Trump administration basically blocked these international efforts through tariff threats. Whether or not a President Biden will be willing to do it and will be willing to use the same techniques to block it is a big question, because these taxes are potentially many millions of dollars to big digital platforms. And the theory behind it, the idea that companies that use the internet should be taxed regardless of where they operate, is a huge tax and internet policy question. We'll talk about what it means to have a President Biden rather than a President Trump. So with that, I hope you stay tuned to follow the series of 10 in 5. I can tell you it's going to be 10 videos, and I hope there'll be 5 minutes, although I need to get a new clock here, a timer in my small studio, so that it can try to push me to stay on the 5 minutes. With that, this is Brian Bieron with Platform Economy Insights. Until the next video, which again, Issue 10, U.S. Privacy Policy and the Future of the U.S.-EU Data Transfer will be our first topic for discussion.